So Jonathan, what opportunities did you see when starting your business, and what feedback did you get from your colleagues?
Well, in 2007, my company and group of people that I started the heat pump store with were already involved in heat pumps through the research work and the consulting work that we were doing. We spoke with distributors around the region that sold ductless heat pumps to contractors, and we talked with contractors. And we knew that a rebate program was coming, but everything we were hearing from the industry was a sort of lack of interest or some skepticism.
Okay.
And so as kind of innovative type people, right, we said, well, we have to prove that it's possible. We think it's possible, but let's not sit and wait. And so we started a contracting business dedicated to heat pumps. It's called the Heat Pump Store. Mm-hmm. And at first we were new contractors, so we had to go and create those relationships with distributors. They were a little skeptical, but we managed to get them to give us accounts and all of that. And our local utility at the time was a small public utility that served a small geographic area, was a part of a pilot rebate program just to test it. And so we were really the only contractor participating in this pilot. And sure enough, we served 100 or so homes in this small town, and the customers loved it. They were saving money on their electricity bills and their heating costs, let's say, and they were more comfortable, which was what we had predicted with some of the early research. And so after that pilot, we sort of expanded our scope and our marketing and service area to take advantage of adjacent utilities. And we never looked back. And of course, then other contractors saw what was happening and saw that we had proved it was possible to have a heat pump only contracting business, or a focus on heat pumps. And the market kind of quickly built steam.
Between Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Montana, there have been over 100,000 heat pumps installed since the Northwest Energy Alliance rebate program launched. How many of those rebates has your company installed, and what has helped you be successful?
Our early days of record keeping were not that good, but we have a pretty good idea that we've done almost 20% of all the rebated installations in the 4-state region, which is kind of surprising. And I would say the next, let's say 20% were done by probably 5 to 10 contractors, right? So a small number of contractors who made a focus on this rebate program and supporting the various rebates that are available have done the lion's share of the work. Now, what has happened in our market, which I would predict would happen in Colorado too, is that the rebates are only a small part of the market. That along with the rebates and the awareness that utilities can create through their marketing, you have growth in other types of homes and uses. So for example, in our market, the rebates are very narrow. They are only in electrically heated homes. Now in Colorado, you have a much wider applicability of the rebates. And so therefore, I think you have actually a much larger market in Colorado. The rebates will still, in Colorado, be only a small percent of the heat pumps that are sold. So in other words, as soon as people start getting heat pumps as a part of this rebate program, the overall market will start to grow. So in the Northwest, I still think today that the rebates for heat pumps are probably still only maybe a quarter of all of the heat pumps sold.
What pitfalls did you experience, and what advice would you give us about avoiding those?
The first pitfall has to do with marketing. And so I think that there's a common mistake that contractors make, which is that they think that the offer of a rebate will make the phone ring. So in other words, utility is out offering a rebate will somehow stimulate the market to have people call them for a heat pump. And that does happen, but it's still a very, very small amount of the business, potential business activity. And so one of the reasons why my company was much more successful than the other heating contractors that we compete with is because we didn't wait for the phone to ring. We invested in our own lead generation activities focused on heat pumps. And so therefore we were able to create opportunities where beyond, the stuff that the utility might be doing.
Great, thank you. So I thought it was interesting that out of the 100,000 heat pumps in the NEA program, That one contractor installed about 20,000 of them over the last 13 years. And I thought it was a nice parallel for Colorado and where we're starting right now, because in the EBC, we have members that are traditional HVAC, energy efficiency contractors. That's been our bread and butter. Some of them have started doing heat pumps and the majority have not. However, this trend is coming and it's happening, and we've been having speakers and discussion about it in our last couple of quarterly membership meetings. And our hope is that it can give us some insight into where our companies that are supporting and driving the different programs in the market can find opportunities, and also on the front lines understand that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the results happen. And so we also want to talk with Con Frank from SMC Geothermal, and then Mike Missimer from MGI Mechanical Solutions. And they've both been in the industry for decades and been heavily involved with heat pump technology. And so we want to take that discussion with Jonathan a step further and just informally have a discussion and get their perspectives. And the first thing I wanted to start with your perspective, and we need to make sure we have Con on. There you are. Welcome, Mike.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Great. So I'm excited to talk to you both, because there's so many different perspectives right now, and everyone's trying to figure out how to fit into this transition. And I think we all agree there is a transition happening. And me, from being on the insulation, air sealing, and building science side, HVAC and heat pump technology is different. However, we're all working in the home, built the house as a system, and to get those results, it happens with you guys on the front line. And so we wanted to talk with understanding a couple things that I want to ask. The first one is, why heat pumps? And we're talking a lot about it in the demand side management settlement process we just went through with XCEL. It was one of the most, it was the main topic, even though the amount of rebates that have been created in the program is only 10% of the entire demand side management rebate program. So it's moving and it's happening. So why heat pumps? And I asked that question because it seems like heat pumps have become the top solution and critical to meeting the building electrification goals by Colorado's utilities and cities and states. Tell us your perspective as heat pump contractors, why that's happening and how that positions energy efficiency as well. But just why heat pumps? Why is this such a strong trend right now? And Con, if you want to start, you had some good comments we talked about the other day.
I come from a background of general contracting. So we started building houses and we started doing energy efficiency a long time ago. You have to address your loads before you address your equipment. Otherwise, your equipment costs are very expensive. So the heat pumps get us to a point where nothing else in the industry can. We get efficiencies out of those heat pumps that are not attainable through any other source that I've seen in the last 45 years of doing this. That's the sweet and short answer.
And from your perspective, you talked about the reason that the heat pumps are doing that, and understanding. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, with the price of gas where it is right now, you need at least a COP of 2.5 to 2.7 to match the price of gas with the price of electricity in most areas. That's why there's a range. And so with our heat pumps, with our geothermal heat pumps that we use, we design our system to never be less than 3.5 at least. 3.5 to 3.8 is our minimum. And so no matter what you do, no matter how you try, we're going to have at least 30% better efficiency than the best natural gas furnaces you can put in. You buy a 98% natural gas furnace, you buy a 21 SEER air conditioner, you match it up to that. That's the most efficient equipment you can have. The geothermal heat pumps are still going to be more efficient. The cost of that 21 SEER and the 98% efficiency furnace are going to be costing what our geothermal heat pump costs, because it's the same thing as that air conditioner with an extra heat exchanger and a reversing valve. So the only difference there is the ground equation. And with tax rebates and with some of the rebates we get from the power companies and whatever, that offsets a lot of that dirt work, the drilling.
And from your perspective, the heat pumps, if you're going to install, for example, if a homeowner was looking to replace their AC and their forced air furnace, and they had the option, the cost, even if they got the highest efficiency in SEER in those, the market has changed where the technology has advanced in the last couple of years that would be able to install a heat pump system at a cost neutral and get better results in the savings. How would you explain that especially for the homeowners and for everybody on the call?
The costs are incrementally more depending on your situation. When we do new construction, we can do new construction pretty much exactly the same cost as bringing gas to the property, doing all the wonderful things. I just developed a project in Aurora. We did net zero energy housing. By not bringing gas into the neighborhood, we weren't fuel switching, and we didn't have to pay for that development cost of bringing the gas in. That paid for our ground loops. So we were the same cost right off the bat with that gas and air conditioning. And so we start saving from day one.
Got it. Mike, would you like to talk about that further? I know we talked about that on the residential side as well.
Sure. Yeah, and I agree with Con. There are a lot of details that we have to look at when we're considering the heat pump technology. I think one of the pinch points that we've seen here in Colorado is the historically, and not necessarily dealing with ground source heat pumps, but more air source heat pumps, is one of the fundamental differences is when the air gets extremely cold, there's just not as much energy to extract, where the ground tends to maintain a little bit different property. So I think a lot of contractors were afraid, hesitant to invest in heat pump technology because at a certain point, they're just not effective. The crossover point, it becomes more energy efficient or more cost effective to utilize gas at some point. But with today's technology, ever-growing technology with inverter technology and these pieces of equipment's ability to maintain or produce energy at low outdoor ambient temperatures, more and more people are switching over. I've been extremely happy with the new air source products, being able to maintain temperatures in a house at, temperatures in the, 7, 8, 9 degrees. And these systems aren't even running close to 100%. So, I think, the heat pump technology, ground source heat pump technology being proven, the ground being able to bounce back and produce a great heat source versus the air source side. We gravitated more towards the ground source technology, but now with new technology, we are able to utilize the air source. And I still think a lot of consumers and contractors are very hesitant based on old ways of thinking. But with the new technology, and especially with the the local utilities advertising it, different administrations coming in, the 2030 energy codes are coming down to where electrification is going to be more of a standard. We are seeing that trend where people are much more excited about heat pump technology, and we're able to prove that it works. I'm able to watch it. We had that extremely cold snap a couple of weeks ago where I was able to watch a couple of our heat pumps on my dashboard, and I was very, very excited to see them running in the 30, 40, 50% capacity and maintaining these temperatures in the house, the desired temperatures in the house, without bringing on electric heat strips, even at 10-degree outdoor ambient. So, I think technology is playing a big part of it. I think the local utilities are playing a big part of it. And people are more and more concerned about their carbon footprint. So they're willing to make that transition.
Well, in talking about where you said, more and more electrification is coming, a couple points from what you said is, one, cold climate heat pumps do work. The misperception is still out there, and many contractors, that's something that has really only changed technology-wise in the last year or so. And there's always the backup heat that's needed. And I think it was interesting, Jonathan's comments, that he said in Colorado, we have more of an advantage for heat pumps than they had in the West, because we do have the gas backup here. And so there was a transition period for all of our companies to figure out where we fit in. And I think that's very important. You both have also talked about the critical role of energy efficiency and the contractors that you work with in our industry, because that has always been, I think energy efficiency is being elevated in going forward. And I think there was concern that energy efficiency would become irrelevant because we're now adding electrification. Why do we need energy efficiency? And we're putting renewables on. But actually, it's a complete picture. Energy efficiency is that foundation that I think does a couple things, and I wanted to get your feedback on, is that not only does it create the savings and the comfort in the home, but also enables to right-size the mechanicals going in and reduce the cost of the mechanicals, but also reduce, then I'm going to be very colloquial, but we bolt on the renewables and it goes all together. So I wanted you to both comment on and talk about the other industries and how you work with energy efficiency out on jobs and what you need to complete your systems. And Con, you want to hook it and start?
Energy efficiency is the low-hanging fruit. That's the easiest, cheapest, most efficient part to start with. You need to do your envelope, you need to do your insulation, you need to do your windows. Those are the most important things first. They cost a lot less to cover a bigger load, a bigger share of the load, than to try and cover it with equipment. If we try and come in and cover it with equipment later and do net zero, which we've been doing for 15 years already, you end up with a lot of equipment costs. You end up with a lot of solar costs that just, it's going to be a very tough sell to get payback on that. If you go in and you do a decent job, we just did 540 units of apartments in Brighton, and we built to Energy Star basically. Even to get to Energy Star with some of the apartment builders was a little tough years ago, but we got there, and we monitored one of the units, and we averaged $10 a month for heating and cooling in a 1,040 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. That says a lot right there. We just monitored just the heat pump portion of it, so we could monitor the electrical flow, and we averaged $10 a month for heating and cooling. And she set the thermostat at 73 in the wintertime, and she set the thermostat at 72 in the summertime.
That's awesome. The business benefits of that. I know you had talked about one, the building owners. There was a lot of work because they couldn't get the engineering and the mechanical engineering pieces. You had to work to get those resized to get the project to pencil out. So there was a heavy lift there. They also, in the 2 years you talked about, they had a waiting list. They were able to increase their rental amounts and they made a profit. And I was wondering if you could just comment on that, because it was pretty impressive in 2 years what happened.
They took 6 price increases in the first year. The property management company that came in and leased the property up or managed the property is one of the bigger property manager companies in the country. And they came in and they used market data. They knew exactly what the market is. And so they started pricing accordingly. Well, word got around little town of Brighton really quick that you need to move into those apartments over there because those things are very efficient. And so they had waiting lists on every building that we turned over as we turned them over. And so the last 4 buildings that we turned over equated to 100 units or right close to 100 units. And every one of them was pre-rented before we turned those last 4 buildings over.
And then how much in 2 years, I don't know if you can mention that, but just, I think it's public record.
It's public record.
What the construction loan was and what they were able to sell out at.
The construction loan was $27 million. They sold it for $54 million. They had some of their own money into it for the land acquisition and water up front, but that's still a hell of a profit. And so they turned around quick and they did another one. That one, the construction loan was $34 million and they sold it for $72 million.
But realize it was a heavy lift. It took over 5 years just to convince everyone that the heat pump technology and the tightening up the shell will all work, and that was the results you ended up.
Well, they had a contractor, they had a group that they brought in to try and do the geothermal originally, and they couldn't get it to finance because their geothermal didn't appraise. It drove the price of the project up so far and it was a HUD project, and so HUD uses their parameters, and if you don't fit in those parameters, you don't go. And so they tried for 5 years to get that thing financed. They couldn't do it. And I had just finished a house in Black Forest that was 16,000 square foot, and I broke it down like I do all the other residential properties. And when they came to me with this project and asked me to do an estimate for them, I saw that one of their units to 20 plexes was 17,000 square feet. So I go, well, I'm going to break it down exactly the way I broke everything else down for the last many years. And I came up with a lot of different loads that they weren't using. And so we were actually half the size. Our price came in at half the cost of what the original cost was. Our pumping costs are less per month than theirs. Their pumping costs for a month was more than our pumping costs are for a whole year now, just to move the water in those projects. And so they just had a bad design. They just used old technology that they just didn't think outside the box to make things work. And so we monitored our system to prove that it works, and it works very well. And the second one works better yet because we've got Grundfos and we've got hydro temp making different parts and pieces for us now. Grundfos came in, saw that we were using certain velo pumps and controllers, and they actually incorporated those right into their pumps now. And so the pumps communicate between the two of them, and we have much better efficiencies yet. And so we monitored our pumping costs in our second project, and we average about $1.50 per month per unit for just pumping costs. where the other project, the first project, was going to be several $100s per month per unit.
Great.
Or 24 plex, I mean.
So that's an excellent example of multifamily. It took a lot of work up front to actually pull the project off, but the benefits were on the consumer side as well as the owners. And so, Mike, if you would talk about how you worked with the different contractors on the energy efficiency side in a residential project recently, and the things that you had to do so that you can show those energy efficiency and the pieces with the heat pump HVAC side as well.
I agree with Colin. The first step is making the shell, getting a consistent shell, a good, well-insulated shell, getting control of the infiltration problems that homes have. And we can reduce the load on a house dramatically just by taking those first steps. A little bit of insulating, a little bit of air sealing, and upgrades in windows. But an example we just got done with, these particular customers, they had 100,000 BTU furnace in the house, gas burning furnace. I believe it was a 3.5 ton air conditioner in the house. We did a blower door test on it. We did some insulating, we did some air sealing, we did upgrade the windows. Now this was over a few year period. They did incorporate a solar array. On average, they were running anywhere between $200 to $300 a month in overall utilities. After all of the upgrades that we helped put in place and getting control of the infiltration, we were able to reduce the sizing of the equipment down to a 3-ton air source heat pump with an air handler, backup electric heat strips. And at this point, like I said, I monitored the system. I monitored it when it was very cold. And because the house is now maintaining the energy that it can, we're driving thermal mass into the home. It's almost like a brick oven. It maintains its heat. So it doesn't take as much energy to maintain comfort levels in the extreme cold. And at this point, with the solar array that they've added, they're actually selling energy back to the grid. So they went from paying $200 to $300 a month in utilities now to having nearly zero utility bills, and that 100,000 BTU oversized initially, but we're able to do it with a 3-ton heat pump that doesn't usually come out of about 50% capacity. So we've been able to prove, and we've seen it over and over again, that we can reduce the load, increase comfort for people. Hesitant in the past, I was a skeptic with air source heat pumps. But with new technology, we're seeing that it's possible. It makes sense. And these people are as happy as you can get. They're excited that the product's working and that the investment that they put in. The local utilities as well are providing loan programs where you can do this all through the utility program, all bundled into one section. So they're helping out. They're helping to put together the pieces so that we can create the house as a system approach versus trying to just attack one piece of the puzzle. And I think first things are first. Insulate right, air seal, take care of the shell, and then we'll attack the mechanical side. It doesn't make any sense to do it in reverse. At that point, you've got technology, you've got equipment that's probably oversized or improperly sized at that point.
Thank you. Great example. Would you say, or what would you comment on the going forward and looking at the companies that are air sealing and insulating and blower door tussing and all the things that you look for, tightening up ducts as well? What would you say about the role going forward with traditional HVAC? Then we're using our backup options of some electric, like you said, weather strips or dual fuel gas, and where those contractors should be looking for opportunities in working with companies that are transitioning like this. Have any suggestions on for them to think about in their business plans, that there could be, is there going to be an expansion of the work for them as well as we electrify?
Well, I think so. Back in 2007, 8, and 9, the home performance with Energy Star contractors, there was the market started to become flooded with one-stop shops to a certain degree, where HVAC contractors were picking up insulating, air sealing, building science, energy audits, and we were involved in that back in 7, 8, and 9. As the industry has changed a little bit, we have industry professionals out there that are great trade partners to create that product that consumers are wanting. I mean, at the end of the day, they're not just wanting energy efficiency; they're wanting comfort. And I think as we become more educated as a community, as professionals, we have to utilize trade partners. We have to utilize the solar professionals out there. We have to understand that we need to bring in insulators and air sealers to create that comfort. And I think it would be, I think the industry is demanding it. I think the customer is demanding it. And I think more and more HVAC professionals are realizing there's a much bigger part of this. So education, or the local utilities being able to provide the energy audits that they are, where they're creating a roadmap to giving the consumer a much better product, is definitely helping to bring that piece of the puzzle together. They're helping bring contractors together, insulators, air sealers, window people, solar people together to create the best ultimate product for the consumer.
Exactly. I'd also want to add, before we go to our next speakers, that this is traditionally what our industry has talked about, and what is happening simultaneously that we touched on in our last quarterly membership meeting in December, is that there's the Internet of the Things. There's this interconnectivity that all the equipment that is being installed, mechanicals in a home, now are all talking to each other, and to do things like demand response and for utilities. And it's becoming much more complex, and that piece also is interplaying in the buildings, whether it's commercial or residential. And so when we look at all the trade partners, it is getting complex, and those lines are, I think, collapsing, and we're all having to deliver more of that interconnectivity and smart devices with smart thermostats and smart home energy management. It's all playing into delivering a better experience in the home, and also contributing to reducing, decarbonizing, our electric grids and that type of thing. So with that, any comments before we move on? Thank you so much. I hope these different perspectives are helpful. And a reminder, the younger generation, this is an exciting time to get into our industry. So, talk to these types of companies and look for opportunities. But any comments before we go? Con and Mike, thank you so much. Fantastic.
I would just say with the electrification thing that everyone's talking about, we've been working that for 15 years already, at least.
Mm-hmm.
We've got net zero energy, where gas wasn't available. We were up in the mountains. We were, many different places, and we've had lots of success with this type of stuff. If you just open your mind and go out and do some research and try a new thing.
Yeah, and I think it's inevitable. It isn't that EBC is saying everybody needs to do this. We're just saying these are the trends that are happening, and it's undeniable. And you've got lots of organizations and utilities. 50% of the utilities in the US have made that goal to be decarbonized and be to an 80% electric grid by 2030. That's significant. And that's why heat pumps have risen to being one of the key solutions to electrifying. And so that's why we've been talking about it so much, and helping our members figure out where they fit into this picture and when do we act. And you guys have found a niche, in doing solely heat pumps, and it's great to hear that there's a lot of success in what's changed. So super appreciate it. Thank you so much. And Connie will move on to the next speaker. And that would be Dietze Davis, which is EEBC's legal counsel and represented us in the settlement process with the 2021-2022 DSM plan with XCEL or PSCO. And they're going to take 5 minutes to talk to us to wrap up the DSM plan and also what's coming. And I do want to notice, Rhonda, thank you for the comment in the chat box, that we will send out to the entire list that attended all the contact names of everybody that presented and the contact information. So if you want to reach out them, you could. So that was also Jonathan Moscatello from the heat pump store and Con Frank from SMC Geothermal, and then Mike Missimer from MGI Mechanical Solutions. So thank you so much and welcome, Casey. And look forward to hearing your wrap up. It was a long lift and we're excited about all the results that came out of our work with the DSM process.
Great. Thank you, Patricia. Connie, I should have my PowerPoint slide. I just want to confirm that that is up. There we go. Great. Thank you. So good morning, everyone. My name is Casey Cunilio. I'm with the law firm Dietze Davis. I'm joined by my colleague, Mark Detsky, who is also on the Zoom this morning, and I will be providing a brief regulatory update regarding some proceedings at the Colorado Public Utilities Commission, including the XCEL DSM plan. Next slide, please. So I know we'll be hearing from XCEL shortly on this new plan, which is very exciting, but for a little bit of background, last month, the administrative law judge issued his recommended decision approving the settlement agreement in this proceeding, which EEBC joined as a party, and the ALJ granted the company's DSM application filing. And the recommended decision became a final commission decision just last week. And in response, the company has filed the final version of its DSM plan, which is over 500 pages in length. So this DSM proceeding at the PUC that EEBC was a party to has officially concluded. And now we move towards the company's launch and implementation of this new plan that EEBC worked hard to influence in the settlement process. Next slide, please. So now, while this new DSM plan is coming to fruition, I also wanted to make everyone aware that next year, XCEL will be required to initiate a strategic issues proceeding by March 31st of 2022. So I'm pretty about exactly a year from now. And the last DSM strategic issues proceeding occurred back in 2017, and EEBC was involved in that docket as well. And for background, XCEL initiates periodic strategic issues proceedings in order to revisit major policy issues, key assumptions, and as well as incorporate state legislation and obtain commission guidance as to how to shape the company's future DSM plans. So the upcoming strategic issues application will likely ask the commission to re-examine a number of larger strategic issues associated with DSM activities, including the appropriate energy savings and demand reduction goals and incentives. And the strategic issues decided in this upcoming 2022 proceeding will form the basis of the company's next DSM plan that follows this one that was just approved and is shortly launching. And I know we can expect EEBC to closely monitor, if not be involved in this upcoming proceeding. So that is on the horizon. Next slide, please. So turning to two other PUC proceedings involving XCEL that are slightly outside of the DSM plan context itself. First, the commission recently ruled that it would be ordering XCEL to file a new application regarding its advanced grid infrastructure, also known as AMI for their advanced grid meters. And XCEL is a very early adopter of these AMI meters from Itron, and these meters notably have distributed intelligence capabilities, which is also referred to as DI. And the implementation of these AMI meters was heavily litigated across multiple commission proceedings a few years ago. But recently, one of the parties in those cases filed a motion to reopen these old proceedings because these AMI meters that will be rolled out starting later this year will be using new technology that didn't exist back in 2017 when these cases were settled with those parties. But XCEL and other parties have warned that reopening these AMI proceedings could delay this rollout that is beginning later this year. So in response, the commission is ordering this new filing by XCEL so that its CPCN can possibly be amended, and has also held that this upcoming proceeding will still occur while the AMI meters are being rolled out, but they had held that the DI technology should be disabled or turned off while this new application is pending. So this new application by XCEL will likely deal with a complex set of issues relating to data access, privacy ownership, security, wireless networks, and the App Store. Next slide, please. So second, there is an ongoing electric phase 2 rate case for XCEL, and this follows the 2019 phase 1 electric rate case. And this phase 2 case will allocate XCEL's commission authorized electric based rate revenue requirement among the company's major customer classes, and is intended to design rates to recover each class's revenue requirement based on the company's class cost of service study. One interesting aspect of this case is XCEL's position that certain factors have contributed to a shift in cost responsibility among its major customer classes, most notably to the residential class, which relates to how much the residential class customer base has grown since 2013, and also an increase of central air conditioning installations that can put a burden on the grid. Another aspect of this case is the transition to time of use rates, or TOU rates, for the company's residential customers, and it is proposing to eliminate the current tiered rate structure from the residential general service known as Schedule R, and replacing it with a seasonally differentiated flat rate. And the company is also proposing to implement TOU rates as the default rate for the company's small commercial customers. And a little bit of background for this proceeding that EEBC is not involved in, but last week the intervening parties filed their answer testimony in response to the company's direct case, and rebuttal testimony by the company and the other parties has not been filed, but a 2-week evidentiary hearing is set at the PUC, a virtual hearing is set for May, and a final decision in this case should come out sometime later this year, most likely in the fall. Next slide, and that wraps it up for my update.
Fantastic. I know, Mark, do you have any comments, or we are getting tight on schedule, so I'm going to roll into the next one, but I wanted to make sure you always have something really poignant to say. No pressure.
No pressure. Not today. No, we just wanted to keep you guys informed because the TOU rates will change how customers respond and use energy efficiency technology, and so will the new meters. And so we try to highlight dockets in between the dockets that we're involved in. We try to highlight other dockets that are going on that are just important for the industry to note. So that was the thrust of Casey's presentation. We're in a lull, thankfully, now that DSM plan is wrapped up and before the strategic issues plan gets filed next year. So hopefully our presentations grow shorter and we slowly ramp up to the major docket next year, where the next 3+ years of goals and budgets, et cetera, will be set in that strategic issues docket.
Great, thank you both very much. And as a reminder, the Policy Action Committee and the Legislative Action work are done in the Policy Action Committee, and that happens on a more monthly basis and sometimes weekly. And we have a working group for legislation that's happening right now, and we're just wrapping up our working group for the DSM plan for XCEL, which is a great segue to XCEL Energy. And we've got a presentation from Ann Kirkpatrick on the residential side, and Jackie Ducharme from the commercial side, and Bob Macauley from the commercial side. And they're going to be talking about their thoughts behind and strategically what came out of this plan and what's changed in the plan, and why are we talking about beneficial electrification so much, and what XCEL is going to be asking from our contractors that we talked to earlier. So with that, let's jump in, and Ann is going to be speaking first. Welcome, Ann.
Thanks. I will try to be a little briefer than expected for a time schedule. I just want to say first, I hope that the EEBC members have gotten as much out of the first part of this presentation as I have. So much of what was said by the speakers so far resonates so deeply with kind of the world in which I'm now immersed. And part of that is, thinking about all the changes we've seen in the past year. One of the things we couldn't talk about before was fuel switching, right? That's a brand new breakthrough for us. To be able to do that is huge. Connie, do you want me to manage the slides, or are you okay? Got it?
I think I'm okay.
That's a little big. Do you mind making it a little smaller, please?
Okay.
Or moving it up so it fits the whole screen.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Thanks. Okay, anyway, I just wanted to mention that is just such a big change for us. So in Colorado on April 1st, we will have some new offerings that are directly tied to beneficial electrification. And Connie, we're going to go through several slides really fast. Whoop.
There you are. Is that okay?
All right. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Next slide, please. Everything that we're doing regarding beneficial electrification, though, and frankly, we're still kind of messing with the name. That doesn't, we have good information from customer polls and such that beneficial electrification is not a great term for a lot of customers. So we're still working on that. But I just want to say, right, every decision that we make is framed around these three priorities, and leading the clean energy transition sure feels different now than it did even a year ago, when we really started talking about this with the contractor community in a bigger way. Enhancing the customer experience is super challenging around heat pumps, I think, at this point. Recent conversations have revealed things that are pretty surprising and challenging about what it's like to be a customer who wants a heat pump and what their experience is. And we also want to keep customer bills low while we're making this transition to heating homes, at least partially, with electricity as opposed to natural gas, and heating domestic water with electricity instead of gas. So let's roll through a few slides. The next one is just a reminder that XCEL Energy's customers enjoy about 25% less in their energy bills today than the national average. So it's quite a challenge to keep our bills low while we're doing all of these other things. Next slide, please. I know you've seen this slide before. We talked about it in December. It's this, when we talk about it though, right? And it was XCEL Energy for a while out there kind of solo, making that big commitment to 2050. That's certainly not the case now. We're seeing it on a much wider basis. Next slide, please. This slide, I really like the visual impact of what happens if we do business as usual, as opposed to doing what we can to move to deep carbon reductions. this is so powerful. So in that building segment is both commercial buildings and residential homes. So big, ambitious plan. Next slide, please. So part of the way we're going to get there is by our generation sources. And what you're seeing here is, how coal has diminished. Natural gas was an intermediate it went up as coal went down, and we started those transitions. But you can see how renewables is growing and will continue to grow. And with that comes that different cost of energy by segment. And that's going to be reflected in things like what Mark and Casey were talking about in differentiating the time of use. So there's lots more coming, and it is not going to get simpler, right? It is going to be more complex, but we're here to help lead through this. Next slide, please. So when we talk about low carbon solutions, EVs are obvious. The generation sources is obvious. But in terms of that, offer low carbon solutions for homes and businesses, that's where we're really going to focus. Us being, XCEL Energy and our customers, right? What can we do together, not on the generation side, but how we're going to impact the way that we live our lives with different energy sources behind us. Next slide, please. So I think, this, if it hadn't been for the previous speakers, this might have been something that would surprise you. I don't think it will now. So the Beneficial Electrification League of Colorado has 10-year goals that are big, right? 160,000 heat pumps and 220,000 heat pump water heaters. That's a big goal. You can see that some of it is from existing homes and some from new homes. And then, I know you've heard about Denver's net zero energy new buildings and home implementation plan, which has made the news lately, right? Without a doubt, this is coming. It is going to change your business. It's going to impact your business. So business as usual, this is really going to shift. Next slide, please. I'm going to quickly talk about those new rebates. They've moved from probable to actual. What I'm going to highlight is here, these are cooling only solutions, and we're differentiating those that way. So central air conditioners, the lower level, you can see it's in blue. It's going to $200. On the right, you see that it was $300. We have removed the AHRI certificate requirement for that lower tier. And based on what we saw last year, because of the supply chain issues and equipment availability, this should really help, still be able to give the customer some rebate. It's tied to the quality installation. So that is, I think, a win for everybody. So if it's a high efficiency installation, but there is no AHRI certificate available, but quality installation work is still done to the ACCA QI5 standard, that is our hallmark, if you will, then that would still qualify for the $200 rebate. Next slide, please. The gas furnace rebate has not changed. Next slide, please. And here we see some significant differences. So heating and cooling solutions, right? So air source heat pumps were at $500. They're going up to $800. Our expectation is that the customer would still have their furnace most of the time, right? That they are then using it as backup, and that the air source heat pump would be used to about 35 degrees. The cold climate air source heat pump rebate is brand new. We're using NEEP. It's ashp.neep.org, ashp.neep.org. It's their database. We're defining cold climate as the heating capacity at 5 degrees has to be at least 70% of what it is at 47 degrees. There'll be lots more information coming about that, but that's how we are defining it. That's true for many split heat pumps as well. So that rebate went up. from 300 to 500 on mini splits. And then a new cold climate mini split heat pump rebate is also available. Ground source heat pump, there's a new level of rebates if the customer is moving from gas to a heat pump, offsetting that gas load and replacing it with electric is great. So there are some nice improvements there. Next slide, please. And so our call to action for contractors, and we'll be doing several things starting this spring in April to really help build this, is first, it is early to market. Not all customers are going to be interested, and we are not suggesting that contractors should immediately change their business models to quote an air source heat pump for all customers. But a great place to dip your feet in the water is by thinking about the customers who are motivated by going green. So if you see a solar panel, if they drive an EV, right? If you ask them about, have you changed your generation sources from XCEL Energy to renewables, which you can do, just through your bill, you can do that. Then there's a good indication that that customer is going to be open to the idea of reducing their personal carbon footprint, and they're interested in a heat pump. Next slide, please. So thinking about a typical bid, right? Good, better, even better, and best. What we're asking is for at least even better and best to be heat pumps in the bids to customers who are likely to be interested in that technology. I can't wait to hear your feedback on that. So some quick slides about what's coming. So spring training is coming, and that's going to be in April and early May. And then we're going to record it and make it generally available as well. So that's a webinar, you're not surprised by that, I know. And the components of that is the XCEL Energy overview, the benefits of heat pumps and market potential, some installation considerations, and the value proposition and some marketing approaches. And actually, Jonathan is going to be presenting that part, who you heard from the heat pump store. Next slide, please. We also have some great materials coming. We'll be repurposing NEEP, their guides. They have a guide to sizing and selecting, installing heat pumps in cold climates. And then they have some customer-facing information as well, including a really nice 2-page leave behind that's called Getting the Most Out of Your Heat Pump. And they have an air source heat pump buying guide as well. So you can find those things right now under NEEP at neep.org, and we'll be bringing those materials out to market as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. Also, we have an arrangement with NATE. Now, there's a good news, bad news right here, which is we still require NATE AC certification for contractors to participate and offer our AC rebates. And that's true for air source heat pump as well. I just want to be clear and distinct about this. We did not put in a barrier to air source heat pumps being that you had to have air source heat pump certification. It's okay just to have AC certification. But we want to encourage contractors to get the air source heat pump certification. And to that end, we will, I have a code that when the technician is ready to take their NATE certification, the exam that's specific to air source heat pump service exam, then they put in the code that gives a $5 discount. But what it does more importantly is it triggers the NATE organization that if that technician passes, we'll give them their money back, and then we'll reimburse NATE. So trying to help further the knowledge and perhaps lower some of the the unknown quality of air source heat pumps within the technical realm and help offset the cost. So the other thing I want to note that's new for us, and I think I can hear Con and Mike perhaps celebrating this, is we are no longer requiring ground source heat pump NATE certification or XCEL, right, which was on what it's based, because it has to do with the loop installation. And in learning from you all, what we know is that typically it's a traditional HVAC company who is installing the indoor equipment, and it's a specialist who's drilling. So we just simplified this, and we're hoping, we saw ground source heat pumps went from an average of 2 a year rebated, dismal, I know, to 11 last year. So as this changes, we're hoping to get more ground source heat pump rebates in, be able to make that connection for you as you're working with your customers. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, would you go back and maybe clarify one thing on that? So, thanks. What we're saying there is that in order for a company to offer the ground source heat pump rebates, if they are approved into our AC program, you can offer the ground source heat pump rebates. There, I just wanted to state it clearly. Next slide, please. Thanks. So, along the same lines, for water heaters, we have already introduced electric heat pump water heaters in the past few months, and those rebates will be going up from $400 if it's Energy Star rated to $600. And if it is CTA 2045 by our definition, right? So it's controllable by XCEL Energy in the same way, if you will, for demand response, kind of the same way that we have to do the air conditioner. So for demand response purposes, then it goes up from $500 to $800. There's a required class. Existing trade partners have received that link. I'll be sending it out again. So that's a half-hour long class, and there's a safety component to that. We're always putting in a mixing valve with those electric heat pump water heaters. And if the trade partner has agreed to, has taken the training and has agreed to our terms related to safety, we're sending mixing valves and the CTA 2045 units to the trades in increments of 10 at no cost. There's a bit of a supply chain snafu going on with those mixing valves and such, but we are pursuing that, and we'd love to see more contractors on that list. Next slide, please. Insulation and air sealing has been simplified. So instead of it being different levels of rebates, like air sealing was between 100 and 300, depending on your energy type and whether or not you were using AC. This has just been very simplified. So what you see in the left column for rebate amounts is a maximum for customers who heat their homes with either electricity or natural gas provided by XCEL Energy. If a customer does not heat their homes with a source from XCEL Energy, in that case, it's the lower rebate amounts on the right, but they also have to have air conditioning to make it feasible for us to offer any rebate from. Next slide, please. The home energy audit rebate amounts have not changed. Next slide, please. Home performance with Energy Star, we are working toward integrating that more deeply with the standalone rebates. So the rebate amounts have become equal. And what that does is make it simpler for customers to understand. Connie, I'm going to ask you to flip to the next slide, and then so I can kind of show it. So what you're going to see on the new rebate summary sheet, thank you, is a right-hand column with the little blue house icon that says that these standalone measures are available for customers to participate through home performance. So that means that if you are an HVAC contractor, the win here is the customer still needs to have a home energy audit, which based on what we just heard from Mike about and Con, tightening the shell is really an important piece. So that should be a simple thing to ask. Have you had a home energy audit? If it's not an urgent situation, get a home energy audit. And then from a contractor perspective, we want you to sign up to offer home performance rebates. Use the home performance rebate form for the improvements that you make. And then we can put the whole package together for customers. If they do minimum of 3 improvements within a 2-year period after they've had that home energy audit, they get a 10% bonus on the rebates that we've already paid. So trying to bring that picture back together some so that everybody's working together for the best interest of the customer. You'll notice that the cold climate heat pumps are not on here. A couple of the evaporative coolers are not on here. This is likely to get adjusted as the year goes on, but this is current information. If you are interested, will you go back to the previous slide for me? Thanks, Con. You see Corey Allen at clearresult.com. If you're interested in being listed as a home performance contractor, please reach out to Corey and let's get that process started. Okay, now 2 slides forward, please. Thanks. So I'm anxious for questions.
Hi, Ann. So we have a couple questions here. One is that, are the heat pump rebates currently in effect today? And do they apply to all regions XCEL serves? For example, the Grand County area where XCEL serves gas only and not electric.
So great questions. The first one is the air source heat pump rebate that's in and mini split heat pumps that are in existence today. Connie, would you go back to the heating and cooling slide? It's probably 4. One more. Oops, sorry, I'm wrong. One more.
Keep going.
One more forward.
Go forward.
One more. There, thank you.
Okay.
So the rebates that are available today are in the right-hand column, where you see there's a $500 air source heat pump rebate, and there's a $300 mini split heat pump rebate. It's not until April 1st that the rebate amounts go up and that the cold climate heat pump rebates become available. Now, Nick, would you repeat the second part of the question for me, please?
Yeah, the question was if these rebates apply in areas like Grand County where XCEL serves gas only and not electric.
Great. Connie, we're going to do another romp. How about going to slide 21? Thanks. So when you look at the left-hand column, it has a key and it tells what the power source needs to be from XCEL Energy for these rebates to be available to the customers. So if a customer is gas only, then they can't get a rebate on something that is an electric energy savings rebate, which would include heat pumps. Did that answer it?
I don't see another question from Rhonda, so I would think so.
Okay.
And then next up is Jason says he did not see any duct sealing rebate. Is this officially saying that there will be no rebate for AeroSeal?
Oh, Jason. Hi, Jason. No, that's not what that means. My apologies for not mentioning it. So we do allow duct sealing as a form of quality installation duct sealing, but there is not a separate rebate for that at this time.
And Anne, if I could add to that,
Yes.
we also got feedback from Mark Schoenheider that more discussion and on that in more detail is going to happen in the 60 day notices process to work on that some more.
Great. Thank you, Patricia.
You bet. And there is another question, and let me get out of this section so I can get to it. Apologize. Sorry, I'm looking for, I saw some other questions there. One of the questions was, will these PowerPoints, the presenters' presentations be made available? And I just wanted to remind everyone that Anne's presentation is loaded on EEBC's members only section. And so all of the PowerPoint presentations today are in that area, and we'll send out a link to that so you can take a look at those as a member. And I think there's one other question though. And by the way, that's Nick, who's our intern, who is reading the questions. We got a little wonky in the start because we had some technical problems that we just kind of jumped in and didn't formally introduce him. So I apologize. I can't find, I thought there was one other question. Yeah, there was the question for the final version of the DSM plan. We'll send that link out as well. And that will be also in that section on our website. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Anne. That was fantastic. I think the details, oh, Anne, there was one other question. And I think you talked about it in different ways, but the rebates in heat pumps, maybe that was just answered and I was trying to read things. But April 1st is the official date. Does that mean all the rebates are available April 1st? Right?
Yes.
And so it is a hard start.
Yes.
For all of us, which is great. Okay, fantastic. And
I
so,
forgot to mention one thing. I apologize. Bob's going to talk about something that's happening on the business side of things that's also happening on the residential thing, residential side. And that is that, as you saw in that, like the rebate summary sheet where it had the home performance little blue icon on the right, we are combining all of the HVAC into one application form. So there's an open programs version and there's a closed programs version. So what that does is, for years, we've had contractors saying, boy, we would love it if we didn't have to do a separate rebate application for the furnace than we have to do for the AC. So that is something we've taken to heart, and there will be training coming up on that, as you can imagine, and we'll be rolling those forms out. But along the same lines, one of the other things we've heard for years is we really hate that QI section on the AC rebate form. And we are moving that to a separate form that you'll keep in your office. And if we choose one of your systems to be randomly inspected, you would need to present that, and it better be complete, right? So that we can look at it at that time instead of it being on the rebate application form, which we hope will streamline things within your own office without sacrificing the quality of the work that's actually being done in the field as we verify it. Thanks.
great. And I did find the question, and apologize if it already was discussed, but it says, do you know where we can find the new lighting rebate amounts? We heard the high bay rebates are going down. We want to market to our customers to let them know those rebates are going down. I know that the commercial lighting rebates are going to be talked about by Bob, and I don't know if there's anything in residential, Anne, that you would want to mention.
Residential, that's all done through kind of a midstream design, program design. So it doesn't really touch my world at all. I apologize, be happy to follow up on the residential side. If there's a super, if there's a detailed question that you want the answer to, I'd be happy to chase it down for it.
Okay, so let's just make sure that we get that addressed. in our next-
Patricia,
Yes.
that'll be addressed in my presentation.
Oh, fantastic. All right, well, great. So welcome, Jackie. And you're going to be talking about the lighting section. So let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. Great to see everybody. Great, so I'm gonna, Patricia, I sent you the slide deck. I'll go ahead and do a share screen. Great. Hey, Bob.
Hi.
So 2021 lighting efficiency rebate update. Jackie Ducharme, nice to see and meet folks on the virtual call here today. As Anne mentioned, our new plan launch is April 1st. So we're all hustling and bustling to get the information out to you all. The slide deck that will be, this slide deck that will be made available, as Patricia already mentioned, we'll be able to detail out these high bay rebates that are for commercial customers. We are just preemptively wanted to say we are considering extensions or exception requests for the late notice. If you are right on the fringe of submitting for the old rebates and we are about to change it and you've already submitted a bid, I'll be working with you all to do some follow-up to make sure that we can address those concerns around the quick turnaround. All right. So what we have is the HID baseline here. The rebate levels, as you can see on the left column by wattage. So this is replacing HID fixtures. The current rebate is here, and the new rebate for the wattage ranges that changed is highlighted in red. We also still have the non-DLC rebate levels. That detail will be on the rebate application, but the percent is still 75% of the DLC listed category. Below this HID baseline fixture is the retrofit category. You can see highlighted in red on the right column is the new rebate levels. The fluorescent baseline tables for the fixture and retrofit kit are on the right-hand side of the slide, and you can see the associated rebate levels. We do have one new rebate category, which is exciting. We haven't had a new one in a little bit, is the parking garage fixture rebates that include the fluorescent baseline. So definitely we have customers downtown and in the metro area with parking garages with fluorescent rebates, or fluorescent, fixtures. And the rebate level is actually in line with the HID baseline. So you can see in that table there, there's two different wattage ranges and the rebate amounts fall within the same as the HIDs, which makes it kind of nice. Those will be available April 1st, 2021 as well. I'm just going to do a quick pause here and see if folks have specific questions around this information. Okay.
Sorry, the only question that we have right now is where can I download the new rebate application form?
Great question. So the rebate application form will likely become available on April 1st. And Bob, let me know if that's the same kind of updates that you're planning as well.
It is.
Yep, so April 1st, this information will be available, so you can make note of that on your projects. However, we won't have the new application until then. But great question. All right, so I have some additional slides in here for folks that are new to the lighting efficiency rebate program. A lot of new folks in the industry, which is exciting. Always looking to partner and connect with new trade partners, and have just a bunch of great information around the prescriptive versus custom. I think in the matter of time, as we really want to get into Bob's segment and detail, I'm going to go ahead and transition it over to him. And these slides, like I had mentioned, are available. Does that sound good, Bob?
Okay, sure.
Before you guys jump in, there's one other question to clarify.
Sure.
Can you talk a little more about the timeline of this? We have several projects out to bid and projects currently underway. I don't know if there's a little more detail that would be helpful. Or has that been answered, do you feel?
You know, I can go over it. Probably it would be best if the folks want to just reach out to me directly so I can be more specific to what their needs and timeframes are. My contact information is in this deck along with Paige Romero for small business and then our lighting engineer. And you can obviously see Derek and Bob here.
Mhm.
So go ahead and reach out to me if you don't mind. That phone number, you can call that. I'm happy to talk on the phone. And then we can discuss more specifics, because really when it comes down to it, we each kind of have different projects in queue and want to be a little bit more detailed. But April 1st is the cutover.
Great. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful, Bob. Take it away.
Let me get my screen up and rolling. Okay. Get rid of some of this other stuff. Okay. Patricia, can you see my presentation?
Yes, you can see it.
Good. Full screen. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Jackie and Patricia and Connie, for the opportunity to present. Due to the time constraint we had today, and based on some of the audience feedback we received, I'm going to focus mainly on the HVAC-R and the Small Business Energy Solutions, which is a new program today. But as you saw in Jackie's presentation, hopefully you jotted down either my contact info or Derek Shockley, my colleague, who is Trade Relations Manager for Lighting. Jackie, of course, is the Program Manager. So between us, you've got all the right contacts for more questions or detail about any of these programs or any other ones that maybe we're not talking about today that you want to know more about. When it comes to contacts within XCEL, in addition to us, once you're working with our commercial customer, we have a whole support group just for them, and it's called the Business Solutions Center. And they are available Monday through Friday. You see their 800 number here. Highly recommend you hand that out, or if you have initial inquiries when working with a customer, do they qualify, et cetera, they are a great initial point of contact. So jot their number down. Also, as you know, larger customers within XCEL have account managers, typically 500 kW demand or greater. And in a lot of cases, who you're working with at these larger companies may not know who their account manager is, because our account manager works with other folks there within that company. So if that is the case, by all means, contact Derek or I or the BSC, and we'll be happy to look them up in the system and tell you who, because the account manager's role is to be that liaison with our commercial customer on their energy efficiency projects with whoever they want to be working with on that project. So as been discussed, you know, we're currently still under the 2019-2020 plan that's been in effect since July 2019. The 2021-2022 plan has been approved, and it's due to start April 1st, 2021. So we're kind of giving you a head start here on what to expect for a couple of these programs. And as has been mentioned, all the collateral websites and rebate info will be updated right after approval happens, not prior. So go to xcelenergy.com and you'll see the info you need. Another slide I like to show for our trade partner base when we're out there, is our customer base through 2020. Commercial industrial wise in Colorado XCEL Energy service territory, you see we have about 41,000 natural gas, 148,000 where we are the electric only provider. Certain areas, Metro Denver, about 75,000 both. And so our total customer count for CNI is about 265,000. Now, what I'm going to focus on today is mainly the HVAC-R plus R program. And as Ann touched on and mentioned, what we've basically done is combine the various individual programs you see listed here: motors, drives, pumps, fan, of course, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration under one umbrella. And I'm going to be talking about the prescriptive component to this. Now, there are a variety of other prescriptive programs, but again, due to time constraints and the audience, I don't have the ability to go into them in any detail today, but I'm going to show you where that information will be coming up here in April for you to join us and find out more about. Jackie touched on the fact that most prescriptive programs have the 60% rebate cap unless a temporary bonus is in place. And we did have some writing throughout the pandemic where we put additional incentives in. And typically when we do that, we do raise the cap, typically up to about 75% of project cost, so that they could take advantage of the full rebate and any additional bonus we might put in place. The other key thing I want to mention, because I hear a lot of people asking, where's the application? Where can I get it? Where do I find it? Well, many of our commercial programs are going to be moving to an online only rebate application starting with the 2021 filing. HVAC plus R is going to be one of them. So you will not see PDFs or printable rebate applications. It'll be an online process only. Now, Derek and I have done a variety of trainings on the online, we call it DAP, digital application process. And if you or the person in your company responsible for doing the applications with us would like that type of training one-on-one or a Zoom, Microsoft Teams meeting, just reach out to us and we'll be happy to make sure you're set up and able to take advantage of that as we move forward. So as I mentioned, the new HVAC plus R program is really taking these various components that you've known prior, under their respective names, and putting them under this one umbrella. And as Ann mentioned, it is really just to make the whole process simpler for everyone when they're filling out the rebate app, since there's always a lot of crossover between these programs. So you see it's combining heating efficiency, cooling, motors, drives, pumps, and refrigeration. So our approach is going to have us combine those in all our marketing materials, all our advertising, and any promotions we may do. So this is the way you'll see us refer to this now. The other change is the very bottom bullet point, where prescriptive rebates, as Jackie mentioned for lighting, are currently 12 months from invoice date is the qualification period. Starting with the new filing, the HVAC-R program is going to move to 24 months. So you and the customer have additional time to be able to look at all the system-wide components, come up with your plan, your project, installation, et cetera, and then go online, put in the application and get the qualifying rebates. So 24 months from invoice date starting April 1st. No change here. The prescriptive cooling programs, you see them listed. All right, so you don't see any changes. These are downstream rebates to the XCEL Energy commercial customer. So no change there. Same thing with our midstream program. I only mention this again because even though this kicked in back in 2015, going back 5 years now, I still get inquiries just about weekly from various trade partners or representing customers wanting to know, hey, we're going to put some rooftop units in, at this facility. Can you check and tell me what the rebate would be? And there is no downstream rebate. It's a midstream incentive, similar to what lighting offers, among others, where the incentive goes to the distributors. And we do not dictate what they do with that pricing. Okay, so when you're working with the distributors, if you get multiple bids or you get a bid for standard efficient equipment, you'll be able to compare and contrast it to the high efficient. But based on what I'm seeing come through is in most cases, we are seeing, if not all, a portion of those incentives that are going to the distributors going downstream to the invoice to help sell and promote this high efficient equipment option. So be aware, no longer downstream, but it is kind of making it through the entire channel. Heating as part of the HVAC+R. We have done away, and this is not new to April 1st. This actually happened last year, but I'm bringing it up because there are still questions I get periodically as if condensing boilers are still prescriptive, and no, they are not. That changed last year, as I mentioned. They are custom only now. However, for non-condensing, up to 85% efficient boilers, we did double the rebate up to $1,400 per million BTU, and that is in place right now. Okay. However, as I mentioned, starting April 1st, it will be online rebate only with the new effective date of 4/1/21. Boiler tune-ups, I'm mentioning this, even though this actually happened last year and changed because I still get inquiries. Those went away. So we used to offer rebates for boiler tune-ups every other year, but that is no longer available. It's not to say we still don't highly recommend they get done, if not annually. It doesn't have to be every other year. That's all we would pay, but still part of a routine maintenance program. However, for cost effectiveness, it no longer made sense for us to offer incentives to do that. The others, no real change. Water heaters and pipe insulation. You'll see the current rebates continuing after the new filing takes place. Same thing with the auxiliary type equipment for heating. All the improvements and add-ons to boilers, to controls, and stack dampers and steam traps. Same rebates in place. However, as I mentioned earlier, you now have 24 months from date of invoice to be able to get these in effective April 1st. Unit heaters, destratification fans. The fans are new, $2,000 rebates for, again, on the gas side for destratification fans, and more detail to come as far as the qualifications for that. But I wanted to make sure that was out there on your radar now. So the other components of HVAC+R, motors and drives. The big update to the motors plan is we no longer will have two separate plans. We used to have a plan A and a plan B, depending on the current motor. So if you had a motor where one never existed, a brand new one, or you were replacing a non-operating motor, we had a different set of rebates than the plan B, which was if you were taking a currently functioning motor, older EPAC type motor, out of service, but it was still functional, and putting in a new NEMA efficient motor, we would have a bit of a higher rebate there because there was some life left and some value left in that prior motor. But we're discontinuing. There'll just be the one plan now. The other thing we're doing, you see it in red here, we are extending the prescriptive rebates where they used to be just 1 to 200 horsepower motors. We're extending that up to 500 horsepower. So you no longer have to go custom for anything above 200. All motor rebates, they're going to vary based on horsepower. They start at about $10 for the one, and they go up to about $2,200 for the upper end, 500 horsepower. So that's a new change to the motors program. VFDs, one of our most lucrative programs, no change. And that's good news because I constantly get asked if we still will offer rebates if you're taking a drive, not so much out of service, but if there was a drive there to start with and it's no longer functioning or you can no longer get parts for it, you know, to be able to repair it. We still offer the same rebates for that as if you're putting in a drive for the very first time. So no change there. So a little bit of a change to the clean water pumps. This was actually in effect last January 2020 when the DOA came out with their new pump efficiency index standards. That's what we were waiting on, some type of standard to be able to compare and contrast and offer rebates when you stepped up to. Well, for pumps, that standard took place in January, and really it's for all covered pumps going forward. Anything that was not rated with a PEI standard was supposed to be taken out of market, and off the shelf and not sold. So going forward with April 1st's plan, for high efficient pumps, we're offering a variety of prescriptive rebates, 1 to 200 horsepower. You see the numbers, anywhere from $100 to $640. And if you put in a pump high efficient with an integrated VFD combination, the rebates are substantially more, of course. 1 to 200 horsepower, it'll now be $500 to $11,140. And what we've done is we've taken the calculation and made it so that you can just do the one rebate for both, where the previous program, we had people, I don't want to say gaming the system, but obviously trying to find out the best bang for their buck. So they would do an efficient pump rebate and then they'd do a separate VFD rebate, thinking maybe there was more money in it. We've taken those calculations, combined them, so you don't need to feel like you're leaving money on the table. If you just put in the high efficient pump with the integrated VFD, you're going to get the same rebate as if you tried to look at doing them separately. And then another addition are fractional horsepower circulation pumps. And of course, these start at the 1/20th horsepower, go up to 7/8 horsepower, and they vary from $50 to $100 a piece. Brand new, effective April 1st. We have never had any type of fan efficiency prescriptive rebate. And now that the DOE has come up with the FEI, as they did the PEI for pumps, we can now offer high efficient fan rebates. So similar to what you saw for pumps, high efficient fan only, 1 to 200 horsepower, you see the numbers. And then if you integrate a VFD, even better numbers. Now, the one difference is on the pumps, the PEI is engraved on the nameplate, so you will find it there. From what I'm told, the FEI, that is not going to be happening, at least initially. So you won't find it on the nameplate, but obviously on the spec sheets, it should have all the energy efficiency index numbers that we're going to need when you drill down on these horsepowers and what the minimums are we're looking for. And then, of course, there are fractional horsepower fan motors, similar to what you saw for pumps. Okay, when it comes to refrigeration, the R in the HVAC-R. Okay, number of rebates, most of them have been in place already. All right, you see mainly grocery, liquor, convenience stores, any business customer where a large portion of their energy use is their refrigeration systems. They could take full advantage of a program like this. Floating head pressure controls and walk-in freezer defrost controls are two new additions, and those rebates vary. So keep an eye out for the collateral and the info when that goes live April 1st. And there are a few food service equipment options coming also, specifically for restaurants or kitchen type applications on the gas side. Now, when it comes to the small business energy solutions, I thought it'd be worthwhile to mention it to this audience, since many of you do work with our mid-market or smaller business customers. This is a new program that's kicking off April 1st. And it's really a combination of the small business lighting and commercial refrigeration efficiency program, but we're also expanding it to include the HVAC-R program, okay, together. It's mainly for customers, small and mid-size, with annual peak demand of up to 400 kW. So again, when you're working with these customers, if they're unsure, you can always call the BSC and we'll verify what they qualify for. We are offering a free energy assessment of the technology of their choosing. Okay, whatever system in there seems to be the one they want to look at initially. And we, of course, will expand on that if necessary when our third party, and at this point, it's Clear Result that we have been working with for a while on this. And they will be the ones going on site to offer the free energy assessment and some of the direct installation components, which I'm going to go over on the next screen. So you see, the program qualification is 400 kW or less for the initial free assessment. However, smaller customers less than 100 kW annual demand can qualify for these various direct install components. And there's some valuable free items here that we're willing to offer to get our foot in the door, do the assessment, and then work with them on any recommendations that come out of that for for future energy savings. But you see, we have select screw and LED lamps and LED tubes, LED exit sign retrofits, aerators, strip curtains for freezers, auto closed doors for coolers, pipe insulation, and then select Energy Star certified smart thermostats. All this would be discussed during the walkthrough by Clear Result and the customer to determine what the best bang for the buck is for them for energy savings and what we could be offering them as far as the free install. And then, of course, the recommendations that come out of this audit, our customers then free to use whoever they want to fulfill some of those recommendations. And I mention that because if they're not currently working with a provider, a trade partner like yourselves, we are also offering through SBES a brand new, what we're calling the Premium Trade Partner Network, which you can sign up to become a member of. So the benefits, number one, your business will be featured in the directory. So again, when Clear Result is out doing these assessments, if that customer's not working with someone and doesn't have a working relationship, we'll have a list here of the PTP for them to pick and choose from to get bids and proposals on some of those recommendations. And we'll also send you leads directly based on what you specialize in. And then throughout this whole process, of course, Clear Result is there to hold the customer's hand, work with them as the liaison on those future projects and any rebate potential that they may have. So if you are interested in learning more and possibly becoming a member of the PTP, you see the email address here. It's XCEL Energy Efficiency, all one word, at clearresult.com. So email them and they'll contact you to let you know what some of the qualifications are to be a PTP member. And also there is an orientation webinar coming up in April. So if you're interested in learning more then, please email Clear Result and they'll get you on the invite list for that. Energy efficiency financing, one slide here. We actually have our fourth and final webinar for March coming up at 10 o'clock today. Some of you may be joining us on that. We try to do these webinars once a quarter. And I just want to plug it here so that you are aware, especially throughout the pandemic, as we've seen customers postpone, delay, in some cases, unfortunately, cancel projects because of the uncertainty that was going on here over the last 12 months. We have found the interest in financing has increased, tremendously as trade partners are able to use this no cost, no obligation tool that we offer to include a financing proposal with their projects. That sometimes will offer deferred financing, 6 months, no payments, or low interest rate financing. And what we always do is we always include a financing option that is cash flow positive. So the amount of the loan payment monthly is actually less than the energy savings. And again, the whole key to this is just to get it to be part of the conversation with our customers and you, our trade partner, so that they consider moving ahead with their project when they see the value that it brings in the energy savings. I mentioned the digital rebate applications. Again, this slide will be out there as available for you to learn more. But again, if you're never tried them or who handles rebates in your company, is not familiar with them, by all means, reach out to Derek and I, especially going forward, as it may be the only way you have to file a rebate for a customer. It is so superior to the paper process, as you can imagine, that we'll go into more detail then. And then the final slide, for all the other programs, including what I just talked about, we're going to go into much greater detail. As you're probably aware, hopefully you've attended our Energy Efficiency Expo in the past. It's usually held at Mile High Stadium. We did not have one in 2020 for obvious reasons. However, for 2021, we are going to move ahead with the virtual Energy Efficiency Expo. These are the dates, they are confirmed. There'll be a variety of workshops and seminars all about the new filing, more detail in depth about all the different programs. So keep an eye out for the invitation and registration link coming soon. And again, contact info, reach out, and thank you. That's it for me. Any questions?
Looks like there's one here for more. Oh, never mind. The link for the network is also in the chat for the PP.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Network, Connie located
Yeah,
chat section for everyone as well.
good. Thank you for including that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that was the question, so she put that in there. Any other questions before we move on?
And if
Great.
not, just like Jackie said, you have my direct contact info. By all means, feel free to call and or email me, and we can do a one-off on any
There
specifics.
is a question in the chat from Celeste. Will the PTP include consulting services?
Well, the consulting service is really more what Clear Result will be providing with their assessment. So the PTP network is more for trade partners who will then fulfill the recommendations, work with the customer on any of the recommendations that come out of that assessment and that consulting service that we're providing, if you will.
Great.
Make sense? Okay.
All right. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you. Yep.
Appreciate it, Jackie and Bob.
Of course.
It is always super helpful in the information. So thank you for taking the time to do that. And with that, we just have one last thing to talk about really quick. And I will put that slide up right now. I'm going to stop sharing, Bob, and we are wrapping up the meeting. Just wanted to remind everyone of the Policy Action Committee. We've been working on 3 House bills for energy efficiency and building electrification. And the 3 bills are commercial building benchmarking and performance standards. That's for buildings over 50,000 square feet statewide. Beneficial electrification in buildings is requiring our IOUs, XCEL and Black Hills to create a electrification plan, including heat pumps that we've been talking about. And then there's also a natural gas DSM policy to expand the existing gas DSM as we're going through the transitions to get more savings. So what I'd like to quickly ask everyone, we are looking for companies, the EBC members, to be signers and put your company logo on the letters of support for those. And we have about 10 companies so far who we mentioned to this Connie when she made the call for RSVPing for the meeting today, had also mentioned that, and about 10 companies said, yes, we're interested in participating and using our logo on your letters. So if you would please put into the chat right now, if you're interested, we're probably going to have an ad hoc meeting in about a week where we're going to bring the bill writers in and answer any of your questions, which is sweep. And then, so again, please put your contact information, company name, who we should follow up with. And then we're also looking for an ESCO who is interested in testifying in one of those sessions in the Senate or the House. So if a company's interested in that, that would be fantastic. And the last item is to remind everybody that on April 1st, we're having our formal policy action committee and legislative working group meeting, and we'll be continuing some of the discussion, like the question that Jason asked for that smaller intervening work group for DSM, and then also covering the details of the legislative support. So, and I might have Dietze and Davis talk a little bit about what the strategic issues are and which companies might want to plan for that for next year. So with that, we are 2 minutes over. Are there any questions? And I please implore, like, now is the time. We need you to say, yes, we want to learn more about this, and get on those letters and learn about the legislative House bill proposals that are being introduced. And we need you to get involved before they're introduced so we can have a little more influence. I'm going to stop sharing. Great. And so we'll let you guys go ahead and put anything in the chat. Any other questions from anyone? Thank you so much. We pack in a lot in these meetings, and we know that, but it's all valuable information. It's all interconnected. So I appreciate everyone's time. we have offered in the past, if anyone has some specific questions and just want to chat for a second afterwards, we'll stay for another 5 minutes. And thanking everyone for joining. And please, I see a couple more people in the chat for the legislative piece to learn more about it. So, and be a signer. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.